My both lost.
Sir, एक फोटो बना के अंदर इस तरफ से
चेयर काढ़े ना जरा सर थोड़ा सा अंदर आ जाए पूरा बुक मिल जाए पूरा बुक मिल जाए
सर एक बुक लीजिए ना
सर
करण सर इस तरफ भी सर इस तरफ भी करण सर सामने करण सर इस तरफ भी करण
सर एकदम सामने से
एक वेट
करण सर सामने सर
यहाँ पे सर करण सर नीचे
सर एक लोग और
चला
Please give them all my love. Wonderful to see.
And maybe okay, Johar and that. I'm delighted and proud with how the book has shaped up. We have a gorgeous cover, as you can see. Our author Satyarth Nayak has worked relentlessly for more than a year, interviewing multiple people, collecting stories, pictures, and putting the book together. Congratulations, Satyarth. It has been wonderful working with you and publishing the book. I would now like to invite our guest of honor for today, Karan Johar, Anil Dharkar, our author Satyarth, the editor Shantanu, to come up on stage and formally launch the book. I would now like to invite and request Anil to initiate.
Want to be here, because I think he's also held up in some work, but you can understand that his state of mind, that even after a few years have passed, he has not overcome the shock of losing someone who was so beautiful and so wonderful and lose her so early. So, Satya, let me start with you. Did you ever meet SRIDEVI?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Elsa. Thank you, Karan, for doing this. Extremely grateful. Yes, I did get to meet SRIDEVI once. I was fortunate. This happened in 2012 when she came to Delhi. I was a Delhiite till 2017. That's when I shifted to Bombay. So 2012 was when she was in Delhi promoting English Winglish. And I had been a part of the promotions, being a fan and being completely euphoric that she was making a comeback after 15 years. So I was in touch with Gauri and Balki, and I had kind of, as they say, I had latched on to the whole promotional campaign that do this, do that, it is a SRIDEVI comeback after all. So they were completely friendly with me. So they invited me to meet her when she came to Delhi. That's when I met her, very briefly. Spoke a few words, extremely magical, extremely shy. I still have that photograph, and what makes that even more special is that Gauri Shinde took that picture. So yeah, so that's a memory I'll always cherish.
And Karan, from the book I learned that you're a lifelong fan of SRIDEVI. You'd be interested to know that when he was a teenager, he started a Chandni fan club. And he also had a video of the best of SRIDEVI, which he kept looking at again and again and again. So what made you such an avid fan? What was it about SRIDEVI that affected you so much?
You know, for me today and every moment of SRIDEVI's is just takes me back to my entire childhood, my entire being, my passion and love for the movies, my absolute obsession with Hindi cinema. I think she has a large part to do with it. I can't recall the moment where I thought I'd fell madly in love with her. I was just her biggest fan. And I grew up in South Bombay. And that was a locality where kids around me weren't very, I would say they weren't very interested or excited in Hindi cinema at that time. It was in the 80s. I grew up in this neighborhood that you would know, Anil. I grew up in Malabar Hill, and kids in my area, they were a lot more, I think initially more interested in, you know, whether it was comics or it was like other forms of entertainment, Hindi cinema being the lowest in their priority list. I, unfortunately or fortunately, was just not very sporty and not very interested in everything else. So I just sat at home and watched movies. And I remember watching all of SRIDEVI's earlier works. And
the loss of sports is the gain of movies.
Is a gain of movies. Well, I don't advocate that at all, because I think, you know, being sporty is all good for various reasons, not just the athletic part of it or the fitness part of it, just in terms of your headspace. But I just grew up watching, I remember watching her appearance in Julie, and, you know, and then went on when she made her big comeback with
Julie
Himmat.
had a small role.
Yeah, but Himmat Wala was where I remember going with my house help at that time to see Himmat Wala in a cinema hall. And because nobody in my immediate surrounding wanted to come with me. And I went multiple times and saw Himmat Wala. And then every other movie after that. And I remember literally dancing on a pot and a pan like she had. And this just, my love story began with her, and it just never ended. And I remember my father was releasing a film on the same day as Mr. India. He released a film called Muqaddar Ka Faisla, which was directed by a very prolific filmmaker, Prakash Mehra. And my father was very hurt with me because on the opening day, I went running to see Mr. India. I didn't see my father's film. And then Kaate Nahi Katte became my anthem for that whole year. It wasn't a very, I'm sure, a very fun sight to see me dance to Kaate Nahi Katte, and which my father and mother endured right through that year.
Can you demonstrate a few steps?
No. You know, I would have till
Let's make this video viral.
Till I gave birth to my 2 children, I would have done that embarrassing thing right now. But I know eventually they're going to start watching these YouTube videos and just wonder what their dada is up to. But anyway, I just want to say that she just became like my entire being. Like everything about her.
What was it about her?
I think it was just her eyes. It was like she spoke like through her eyes. You know, it was just everything from just her eyes, the way she emoted. She just became like I felt like she was talking to me right through those movies. I felt switch on, switch off, which I'm sure Satyarth has written in the book as well, because I've seen it up close. And it is something that, you know, you think that you've heard it as legend goes in the movies, that SRIDEVI had this switch on, switch off, but it was just that. It's like whatever she did, she could.
चैनल का नाम आपका नाम
Really, and when Chandni released, like you said, it became my obligation to keep dragging people from college, because I was in my first year junior college at that time at HR, and just wanted them to convert to being a SRIDEVI fan just the way I was. It just became a personal obsession and a personal mission for me at that point of time.
Yes. From what I can see, that she started when she was something like 4 years old. Apparently, there's a reference to it. The book begins with that. Her parents had taken her and 4-year-old SRIDEVI to see a movie. And during the intermission, this little girl just goes up on the stage and starts dancing by herself. So obviously she was a born performer. And by the time she was 11, I've been reading your book. Yes. Okay. By the time she was 11, she was actually asked by producers in the South to wear a sari and be a heroine, which is incredible. And at 12, she was in a movie where she was the lead. Now, when I look at the pictures of her as a baby, I don't see anything exceptional in terms of looks as a baby. What was it, I wonder, that made these producers in the South see that potential in her? Do you have any clue on that?
Sure. I spoke to this lady called Saukar Janaki. She is a big veteran actress down south. And she has acted with, in fact, Sridevi's very first film when she was 4 was a Tamil movie called Thunaivan, where she plays a mythological character called Lord Murugan. And Saukar Janaki was a part of that film. And she gave me that first glimpse of her on set, of the 4-year-old Sridevi. And that's the same question I asked her. What was it about her that a 4-year-old kid gets inducted in a film? And she said, there was something, like Karan said, something about her eyes. There's something about her eyes that she just drew you in. And she also had this inborn talent that she could follow directions very easily. Almost every director I've spoken to who have directed her as a child artist says she was very obedient, extremely obedient, and she could replicate what you did, what you showed her. And she could just absorb what you showed and produce exactly that, and even take it notches higher. She was not an actress by education. She was an actress by observation, ever since she was a child. So she would observe.
She was also one of the few actresses from the South who couldn't dance, who hadn't learned
Exactly,
dancing.
she was not trained. Not many people know she was not a trained dancer.
In fact, I asked her, I remember, and of course I had the great fortune of knowing her. And I asked her, and I said, when did you train in classical dance? And she said, sets have been my only training ground. She said, I'm not a trained Kathak dancer, trained Bharatnatyam dancer. I know nothing. I know how to dance in motion pictures, and that's what I picked up on sets. And it's amazing because actually if you see, it's not that her footwork was ever that bang on or correct. If you see Madhuri Dixit's footwork, it's much more like correct and technically on point. But Sridevi's face danced. Her face danced, and that's what always matters in cinema. She danced for the camera.
That's a lovely phrase, her face dance.
She danced for camera. She didn't dance for you to give her an award in classical dance. She danced